Do you think we would see any sort of uprising, maybe from those in the Wagner Group who are loyal to Prigozhin? Or do they take this as kind of a cautionary tale of, hey, if are the leader of this group and want a mutiny, that you might end up in a plane crash too?
It's not clear that they can do anything significant, even if they wish to, because as we believe right now, there are no organized Wagner Group forces on Russian territory, and so the closest that you could come to Russian territory would be to have the Wagner Group forces in Belarus attempt to somehow try to march back into Russia, but they would be very easy to control by the Russian military if the Russian military wished to do that. And as far as the Wagner Group forces that are located in Syria and in various African countries, they are completely dependent on Russian military aircraft for transportation. They fly back and forth through the Khmeimim military air base in Syria that is now under Russian control. And so they could not do anything without military support. So I think the big question is, to what extent did Prigozhin have support within the Russian military, within the regular Russian military forces? So we know that General Surovikin, who Prigozhin had identified as being his go-between with the defense ministry, somebody who had been in command of the Russian air and space forces and had earlier led Russian forces in Ukraine. He has not been seen since the day after the mutiny. He is reportedly under house arrest, and just a couple of days ago, he had his command position in the air and space forces taken away from him. So that's an indication that there were at least some military officers who were probably supportive of Prigozhin's march on Moscow. And so we just have to wait and see what this might mean for any disruption within the Russian military.
I know you did mention that there are regional commanders within the Wagner Group, but is there any indication that Prigozhin could be replaced by maybe someone who's more loyal to Putin?
Well, keep in mind that Prigozhin has no combat experience. So he was the contractor and the recruiter. And I think the answer is yes. It would probably be pretty easy to find somebody else who would be the go-between, who would be the fixer for the Wagner Group forces or whatever it is that they become and the Kremlin. And the only question is, was there information that Prigozhin had about these relationships that he's established in all these different countries that was not written down on paper, that was not shared with colleagues, and that could not be replicated? So it might be difficult for somebody to come in and try to figure out, Prigozhin had all of these, just like dozens and dozens of businesses inside all kinds of shell companies all over the world. It might be difficult for somebody to come in and immediately take over all of those companies if they didn't have all of the information behind them. But again, I suspect that that's part of the reason why Putin waited a couple of months. It was getting intelligence about exactly what Prigozhin had and exactly who Prigozhin knew, and attempting to replicate those. We do know that the leader of the Central African Republic, President Touadera, had said immediately after the mutiny, we don't care if you call them Wagner, we don't care if you call them Mozart, just send somebody to come and help us because we need Russia's help. And that's an indication that probably Prigozhin as an individual did not matter all that much. What mattered was Russian state support that happened to be through Prigozhin, but that Prigozhin himself might not have been the crucial player.
You're the expert here. You've been following all of these players for years. Is this an indication about anything regarding to Putin's leadership? What does this tell us?
Well, I mean, it's certainly the whole series of events is an indication of weakness, that he was not able to keep Prigozhin under his control without killing him. But I think, Putin probably took about the strongest action that he could take to try to reestablish his authority. But there's a real question about what this is going to mean within the Russian armed forces. This information is going to filter out to Russians in the field fighting in Ukraine. And the question is, what does this do for their sense of morale? Did they think that Prigozhin was kind of a hero? And did they take this as an indication that something is rotten in the Kremlin? Or does it just become another one in the whole long series of assassinations that Putin has carried out that doesn't get all that much attention because it's just one of many?